Today I'm walking on the eastern side of Beaulieu Heath and I'm heading to a spot which is fascinating because it's got this link to three really interesting eras of history culminating in the Second World War. Now the spot I'm heading to is that mound there. So if you come with me, I'll show you. It's really interesting. So this location on Beaulieu Heath is a Bronze Age cemetery, and the feature, this large mound I'm going to talk to you about today, which has that link to various eras of history, is a Bronze Age barrow. So it probably dates, and this is quite a wide range in years, from possibly 2000 BC to 700 BC. And Bronze Age barrows are a feature of this area because these were the burial mounds for who you would imagine probably high social status people. And there's a number around. You can see one just in the distance there. There's another mound. But this one behind me that I'm going to talk about today is unusually high, and I'll explain why that could be in a moment. Now, how they were made, and I'm going to drop down into a ditch now, and I'll show you that ditch. We've got this ring that surrounds the barrow. So those Bronze Age guys and girls, potentially, they're digging the earth, which creates this ring, and then the earth gets piled up there on top of whoever's getting buried there. So yeah, you can imagine the work and effort that would have been taken to have done this. As I said, there's a few around here on this site within a few hundred meters of each other, but this one's particularly unusual. The ditch, for example, that I've just walked in has stopped, and the reality is it should extend all the way around the barrow. The barrow itself is also unusually tall, as I explained a moment ago, and you can see trackways there that horses and people have been going up for many years. And then when you come around to this side here, it doesn't have the uniform shape that most Bronze Age barrows do that you'll see in the New Forest. The ring's gone for a start, been filled in at some point, but also it's just really mashed up and destroyed, and I can tell you why. In the late 1800s, this barrow was used to support targets and used as a target for a rifle range, and that rifle range would have been positioned over there somewhere. So all the guns firing into the mound and really mashed it up. Potentially also those people, those military men who created this rifle range here, it's possible they actually put more earth on top of it to make it more of a target. I don't know that bit for certain, but that's just my assumption because it is so tall. Now, the deputy surveyor of the New Forest at the time, he was a guy called Gerald Lascelles, and he wrote a letter to the military company who'd been using this as a rifle range, expressing his disappointment. And I'm going to have to get my phone out of my pocket because I've got a copy of that letter on my phone. I'll just read you a slight highlight to it. He says, "Sir, I have to acknowledge the receipt of your letter with the circumstances under which leave was given to craft a rifle range on Beaulieu Heath." And here's the rifle range. And then he says, "The barrows have been destroyed beyond the possibility of reinstalment. I can only say that permission which was given did not in the slightest degree warrant this wanton and unnecessary act of vandalism." And that's what he's talking about. The barrow has been mashed in an act of vandalism. I mentioned a moment ago that there were tracks that run up these barrows, and I think as we're here, and I hope you don't find it too disrespectful, maybe I should climb up, because if I climb up I can start to show you the piece of Second World War history. Oh, well, I made it, and actually that was quite hard work at my age, but I'm glad I did, and it's so worth coming up here. And you can see the tracks beneath me. I'm walking where the horses walk and stand, and also where people have probably been coming up here for maybe hundreds, possibly thousands of years, although I would imagine probably not when it was a rifle range, because it offers just such incredible views of the surrounding heathland, as you can see as I pan in this circular motion. There's one of those Bronze Age barrows in front of me there. There's another one there. So we're in this Bronze Age cemetery, as I said, and you'll notice they're a little bit more uniform, a bit more bowler-like. They certainly haven't been hacked up like this one that I'm stood on. But it's this open landscape that I'm showing you at the moment, which is what links it to the Second World War. We know war is declared in September of 1939. Britain's now at war with Germany. And then when we get into 1940, there's this huge fear, and rightly so, of invasion. You know, we think that Hitler is making plans to invade Britain. And open pieces of landscape like this were thought to be the perfect place to land German aircraft, German gliders, German troops. So the heathland in this part of the New Forest had anti-landing defensive measures put in. That could have been stakes in the ground. It could have been holes cut out of the earth. And actually, that's what we can see when we're up here. You may or may not just see that line that extends across the landscape. I'm going to go down again and I'll explain exactly what it is and how it would have worked to deter any invading German army. So I'm now on what that line was. I don't know if you could really make it out, and even so, when we're on the ground now, the depth of perception of it by my camera might not make it obvious, but if you look in front of me, we've got a ditch, and I walk into that ditch, and then the ditch stops, and we have a bit of flat ground, maybe five meters or so flat, and then we drop into a ditch again and carry on walking, and another few meters or so, and probably 2 meters rather than 5, but we drop into a ditch again. And I'm going to overlay a bit of aerial photography from wartime, and it'll really become obvious what it is I'm walking on. I'm in one of the ditches now. So what happened here was ditches were dug out of the ground, and then the gravel out of that ditch was put into a pile. We don't see those piles anymore, but that's why on that overlay photo I showed you, see those white dashes. That's where the gravel has been dug out of these ditches. And what that then forms is anti-landing trenches. So if you think of German aircraft, it can't land on a piece of heathland like this because it is going to get absolutely destroyed when it goes either into the ditches or against the piled up gravel. Now these anti-landing trenches and ditches and mounds that I've showed you and I'm walking in at the moment, we get them on Beaulieu Heath here. We get them on near Dibden Purley, the 40 enclosure. I'll show you another photo as well. You also get them just off Beaulieu Airfield. And actually, on the overlay I'm showing you of Beaulieu Airfield now, they were there before the airfield was even built. And the airfield didn't open until, I think it was August 1942. So you can tell that invasion fear, 1940, that's why these anti-landing trenches, and I'm just going down into one again, were created on this heathland because they didn't want it being used by the invaders. And actually, it ties us back really nicely to, just to get my orientation a bit better, ties us really nicely back to the Bronze Age barrow, because this anti-landing trench is coming off it. So you think to yourself, the Bronze Age barrow, that was part of that defence as well. You know, can you imagine them trying to land in a Bronze Age cemetery in a German aircraft with large mounds of earth like this dotted about and these trench lines? Now, as we know, the invasion never came, so how successful these would have been, it's hard to say, but I'm sure they would have acted as a deterrent. So there you go, 3 interesting eras of history, I think, and I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got the Bronze Age cemetery, we've got the late 1800s rifle range, and then we've got the Second World War. It's all just fascinating, isn't it? See you next time.